All right, guys. Thank you so much for dialing in. Today, we're going to be answering some questions from the community on the economy. For everybody in here, I'm sure we all know that we released some pretty long-awaited and eagerly anticipated information on the economy that we put out last week. And today is a day to ask any questions that you may have about that economy release or for some upcoming game developments. We've set this discussion up for about 1 hour, and it's going to have two parts. The first part is going to be your pre-written questions, which were submitted through a typed form that was linked in our Twitter post and through YouTube and Twitch as well. And then we're going to open it up to the audience. One thing I'd just like everybody to keep in mind is this economy is a living document. We're going to probably have to do some more of these discussions to answer your questions in the future. So please continue to ask those questions and clarifying information. If you have them inside of that channel that we've set aside for the economy, which is the NFT economy chat. It's been super productive so far. And I know that myself, Michael, Khalid, and the rest of the big time team has been spending a lot of time reading through there, doing our best to give you the information you know that we know you all want. So before we get started, before I introduce the rest of the panel members, we did something very different with our economy. It's very different from anything you've seen before. And we did this because we truly believe in the cosmetic aspect of games, giving players the ability to craft and own their own appearance in a game in a way that has never been done before. So with that said, I'm going to pass it off to the rest of the audience members here who are going to briefly introduce ourselves, and then we're going to go through some of the questions that you guys all submitted. So I'll pass it next to Michael.
Hey everyone, super excited to be here. To be honest, it's going to be a lot of Khalid and Brian doing the talking, so I'll let Khalid introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Khalid. I'm the Director of Monetization and Economy at Big Time, so I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And I wish to shed some light on any topic that you think is not understood or maybe we did not clarify via the document or the video.
Hey everyone, my name is Brian. I'm the head of product here at Big Time, and I'm super excited to share with you all that we've been working on around our economy this today. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about any and everything about what we've built here.
And we also have we are also joined by the one and only Zach Rice TV. Well, great. I want to jump into the first question here. So the Discord ID is Nick17 #7395. Now he asked, you stated that all of the coins will be obtainable through gameplay only. How do you plan to maintain a reasonable price for the token if the players will be earning and selling? I'll pass that one over to Khalid.
Yeah, sure. So like making sure that the value is stable is not something that we can guarantee completely, but it's one of the biggest aspects of the economy when designing the economy that we want to make sure that we do something where the token is stable. So the way we look at it as the more there are ways to burn the token, and the less there is of a supply for that token, that's exactly how we're doing it. And the way to look at it, like if you look at our game, the token will be mostly used in crafting the cosmetic NFTs. So as long as there is demand for our cosmetic NFTs, then there is always going to be a good they're going to be more demand than the supply. So the one thing that we did was that the token is not only used in crafting, it's also going to be used in other ways in the game. So one topic that we still did not cover, which is the exclusive portals. So we're looking into ways to adding the demand for the token through these mechanisms. So the more user base we have, the more demand they're going to be for the token.
Awesome. Okay, on to the second question. It's Dybbuk Time, #6415. Their question is, what is the real argument to implement the time crystal?
Yeah, so this one is a bit of a hard topic to answer. What we're doing is we're writing an article to clarify everything about time crystals, because it's one of these aspects that could be easily misunderstood. But let me just touch on that subject just a bit. So we, when designing the economy, we wanted to add a component that is backed by a stable value. So that's the role that time crystals are going to play. And the reason why we needed something like this is we wanted to integrate this resource into the generation of time token, therefore adding some stability for the token itself. But again, we're going to touch on this subject very thoroughly through an article that we're going to write.
Fantastic. And I think there was reference to that article that you were going to write that's currently on the Gitbook right now, too.
Yeah, so we touch on that subject just briefly. But I would really like to dive deeply into that topic because, again, it could be misunderstood very easily.
Great. Okay, I want to move on to the next one here. Eric Ephraim, number 5482. They asked, after this change, we will no longer be able to drop NFTs in dungeons? I think they're asking, like, hey, are NFTs still going to be dropping inside of dungeons?
Yeah. So basically, we will have two types of cosmetic NFTs, craftable and non-craftable. So the non-craftable ones will always be droppable in dungeons. So yeah, it's like we're not going to stop that. That's a very important part of the game, and it's going to continue afterwards.
Fantastic. That's great. I think for players who maybe don't want to partake in the crafting part of big time, but they still really value being able to find cosmetics and then transact with them on the marketplace. Cool. Okay,
It's
so
also worth noting really quickly that all the NFTs that have been dropping during this early access period are those special non-craftable NFTs.
so Brian, to clarify what you just said, that means that nobody's going to be able to craft those NFTs that they're finding right now in an armory or a forge in the future. So that's the only way they're going to be able to get made.
Correct. These are separate from the Forge Armory system, making them even more exclusive during this early access period.
Fantastic. So I think that's really important to note too, especially if you can get into the early access part of the game right now, you're going to be having access to NFTs that are extremely unique. Great. Okay, I want to move on to the next one. It's Octavian 9141. They're asking, do we need to have our items to sell our in-game items to sell our in-game items to be eligible to count towards the airdrop? I think they're trying to figure out whether or not they need to find the items or sell the items or buy the items to be count towards that airdrop that we had mentioned in the economy reveal.
Okay, so what I understood from that question, Matt, is that maybe they are asking if it is set for sale on the OpenLoot platform. Does it count as during the airdrop?
I agree. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. So the way we're looking at it is we're trying to reward people who are supporting us. Okay, and the way to do that is that we're only going to look at the items that are not up for sale that you have on your account. We're going to look about having them in game as well. Honestly, it's like we still need to polish the little details of how we're going to do it and how we're going to look at the data exactly. Then we're going to report exactly how we're going to do it. But generally, I don't think we're going to give points or attribute points to items that are up for sale.
Okay, so I think for your average player, if they find more items or buy more items but aren't selling them, then it generally increases their ability to get more in that airdrop. Broadly speaking, now there's some extra details, but is that the broad strokes of what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct.
Great. Okay, and now this user also had a two-part question. They also asked, crack space can be found anywhere in the space. What if you have 10 spaces? Will it have more chances at getting that cracked space? I think they're referring to a
You mean
cracked
hourglass?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so generally the way it works, we look at per space, and there is a specific spawn rate per space. So the more space you have, the more cracked hourglasses you're going to have. And the higher the rarity of the space. Come again?
Sorry, I was just going to say maybe the better way. I just want to really quickly frame it as There's no bonuses like multipliers for having like X space. It's just more if you have more space, you will have more chances to get cracked hourglasses, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Got it. Okay. I think that answers that question. All right. For the next one, it's I'm gonna mess up this username. No X the Brave 1445. They're asking, will there be ways to get chest drops in game to get a forge, armory, or time warden chest, or are these only available via purchase?
Okay, so I think if people paid attention on the Git book, when we declared the rarity chances for all the mystery boxes, we were not mentioning common. So common utility NFTs are not found in any of the boxes. And the reason for that is the commons, which is the highest population utility NFTs, will only be gained through either airdrops or drops in game. So like the biggest majority of utility NFTs would be gained through drops in game and through the airdrop. So yeah, you could get them as drops in the game.
Got it. Okay. All right. For the next one, it's Joey Clark 9509. They're asking, did not hear anything about renting out your space. Is this still in progress? So I can actually answer the first part of this one. So the this there's like a sequence of events that we needed to set the conditions for ultimately that guild system and the renting of the space, and the first step of that was the economy portion. So yes, we did not mention the rental part of it. It's because we're just here to answer questions and to set the groundwork for the economy for how that crafting and upgrading works. As with everything that Big Time does, even when we release something, it's always going to be improved and iterated upon. The broad concepts will always be true. So even when we do put out information about what that rental system and that guild system looks like, it's going to always get better. So you are correct. We did not put out any information on it, but it is coming. College, is there, or Brian, is there anything more you'd like to add on to that?
Exactly what you said. Like we know that it's an important part of the economy. Okay, we're trying to come up with something that is suits the user's needs. Whenever we have something that we could share, we're going to share it. But it's a very important part of the economy, and we're working on it.
Yeah, and if you have broad feedback on what you'd like to see in it, there's several places where we look for that feedback. But first and foremost, we're always going to be reading through the NFT economy chat. So if you have ideas on the way you think it should work or that you would like for it to work, please drop it in there, and we're gonna be sure to give it a look. All right, next question is Tommy B31. They're asking, will it be possible to rearrange space and utility NFTs after they've been placed, or will they be locked? So can you change which space is connected to the starter room, for example?
Yeah, so players will always have the flexibility to change or shuffle their utility NFTs as long as they are not crafting something. So if you have something that is undergoing, then probably you will not be able to move it. But one thing to consider is that if you look at our wiki, we have a system that is called the set bonus, which is related to the utility NFTs that you connect to a particular space. And depending on what sets of colors, which are derived from the types of utility NFTs, you're going to get a specific bonus. So we designed a complete system to encourage shuffling utility NFTs within a space. So yeah, it's a very important part of the economy, basically, or the crafting system.
I think that's one of the things we've remained pretty true to throughout the Big Time development and outrolling the economy is space is very customizable, and just because you put it in one configuration doesn't mean you can't change it later on. Like that's pretty much always going to be an important feature of the way that we build space and anything else inside of Big Time. Okay, the next sorry, Khalid, did you have something there?
No, all good.
Great. Okay, the next question I have is Turagiri 4846. They're asking, Will I get an airdrop if I own spaces but don't have any legendary cosmetic in title?
Okay, so I think this question is coming because the image that we actually put for the airdrops, I think is causing a lot of confusion. So I'm really sorry for that. For that. To explain how the system works, just for clarification, is that no matter what NFT you have, that's going to contribute points. Disregard, like we're not looking for specific sets or collections. Literally, any NFT from Big Time is going to contribute points. Okay, and we're going to look at the number of points, and then that's going to make you eligible to a specific airdrop package, let's say. So yes, if you have only space in your account, you're still eligible for airdrops, depending on the points that you're going to get.
Fantastic. And building on to what we said before, as long as they're not for sale on the marketplace, then that's the best way to guarantee that you're going to increase your points towards that allocation. All right. Next user, their username is Neo247-928. They're asking, how will players be motivated by burning the NFTs?
Okay, so I'm assuming they're talking about the cosmetics, NFTs. So one thing that we thought about is if our economy depends on season to season adding more cosmetic NFTs, so what's going to happen to the previous season cosmetic NFTs? And we wanted to add a burning mechanism for cosmetic NFTs, where if the price for a certain line of cosmetic NFTs drops below a certain amount, then we might add a special vendor that would start to take that cosmetic NFT and turn it into some currency that you can use in the game. Okay, so what are you going to use with this currency? We already have a plan, but I cannot disclose more information. But it's very important to create a burning mechanism just to make sure that the supply is always healthy for all our cosmetic NFTs.
Got it. And I think that's similar to what you mentioned before about how the controlling that supply compared to the increasing demand from the player base is going to help keep a lot of that that balance in check from the token to the NFTs themselves.
Yeah.
All right. The next user is Boy Hustler 5450. Their question is, I have one legendary small space and 120 plus NFTs from epic to uncommon. Am I eligible to get an airdrop? I think this is pretty much already answered
100%,
this one.
yes.
Yep. As long as you have any NFTs and they're in your items and they're just not currently listed on the marketplace, you're going to be getting more points towards that airdrop. Great. All right. Next one, Cute Girl 2K5704. If NFTs are only limited to cosmetics and these cosmetics allow access to special locations, then it's an access key in the form of cosmetics and not only cosmetic. So it's kind of more of a statement than a question.
Yeah, and then I've seen another question that is maybe similar, which is, doesn't this consider to be pay to win, essentially? So I'm going to answer both of them. So the way we're going to look at it is that the entire economy depends on these cosmetic NFTs and demand to always be there for these cosmetic NFTs. So that's the most important part of our economy. And to make sure that this happens, we wanted to add extra utility for cosmetics that is not power at all. Okay, so what we're thinking about it is now, like, we obviously this is not fully flushed out, but the way we're looking at it is that if we're going to have these exclusive portals, that would require you to wear a specific set or maybe a specific tags of cosmetic NFTs to be able to enter. So what am I going to get there? It's going to include a special loot table that is not related to power, but to other stuff, such as higher drop chances for other non-craftable cosmetic NFTs, perhaps more time tokens if you have an hourglass, things like that. So things that are not related to power. And the reason we wanted to have this is, again, to add extra utility for cosmetic NFTs that is not related to power. That's exactly how we're doing it, and I don't think it's related to pay to win, since it does not include any power.
So none of the NFTs are going to make you stronger, faster, smarter, or give you an additional power advantage that allows you to kill enemies faster. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. Yes.
Okay, so I think that kind of answers what the question is. Um, what that user and several other users have suggested, which is like, hey, these cosmetics, maybe they can give you access to a portal, but they're not really a pay to win mechanic in any sense, in that anybody can still level up and have the same power level despite what their cosmetics may be. All right.
Yeah.
Next one is from one of our guild leaders, Dong Steve. They're asking, is the cracked hourglass dropping is the is the cracked hourglass drop a one-time thing, or is this a recurring event? If it's a recurring event, how often is it going to happen?
Okay, so it's definitely a recurring event. How often? We're going to have the answer for this once we do our pass on all the values. So now we have all the systems in place for our economy. The second thing that now we're doing is just fully flushing out all the values. So once we do that, then we're going to have a very solid answer. But yes, like it should be something that is frequent, not like once in a lifetime thing.
Got it. Okay. And then the next user is asking, what will be the max daily token supply? I think there is a reference to this on our Git book right now, but Khalid, would you mind answering? What is the
Yes,
max
sure.
daily token supply?
Yeah. So we're not going to put a hard cap on that. The reason for that is that our hourglasses are actually capped. So the max daily supply consists of the current hourglasses in circulation multiplied by the number of time token they would generate on average per day. And that's how it's going to be handled.
Got it. So the main way that the token allocation is controlled each day is through the hourglasses as opposed to a direct control on the token.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Next question is Shindo8343. Can you explain the upgrading process? Will it require 3 identical NFTs to upgrade, or can you mix and match?
Yeah, so the default is that it should require 3 identical of the same line. So let's say you're crafting or upgrading a green sword from common to uncommon, then you would require 3 common green sword. However, we might add exceptions again when we want to add some burning mechanisms. So let's say we have something that we want to encourage players to burn, then we might integrate it as an optional thing in some of the recipes. So that's the only exception.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Next one is bend hind legs. They're asking, are NFTs reloaded or purchased in early access upgradable? This actually might be a Khalid and Brian question.
So again, I didn't hear the question correctly. You're saying that the EAL cosmetics are they upgradable essentially?
That's correct. Yeah. So are the NFTs that they're finding in either gold, silver, jade, or in the current Rupee Pass access period upgradable?
Yeah.
So that kind of,
So yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, Con.
Yeah. So it's they won't be upgradable. So generally, all the non-craftable cosmetics are cannot be upgraded, but they could be used in some recipes, as we said, if we try to integrate them as a way to burn them.
Okay, so the items themselves are not upgradable, but they can contribute towards that burning mechanic that we were answering, I think, 1 or 2 questions ago. Is that the main way where
Exactly.
the model accounts for it? Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. So again, strong benefits to finding and collecting those NFTs now in the early access period so that when the crafting portion of the economy starts, you can really hit the ground running with it seems. Okay, the next one is from a user called Born. They're asking, I know we're waiting on more information on the renting system for space and utilities, but I really want to know if weapons, armor, and titles will also be rentable in the future. So I can start with this one and then I'll open up to Khalid and Brian as well. So in a similar system that we're still looking for some of that bottom up feedback. We have a broad understanding and concept of way we think that the rental system is going to work and from the utility NFTs and including space and to have that have a reciprocal relationship between, for example, the guilds or the clans and then their members as well. For those in-game items or those cosmetics as well, we have certainly discussed that as being a key part of that renting and sharing part. But should there be other things in there? Some of them may be unique to a guild itself. It's certainly up in the discussion for whether or not we include it. And we would definitely love to hear your feedback on that one in the NFT economy chat as well. But Brian, Khalid, I don't know if you have any additional comments on that one.
I think it's definitely something that we'd like to get some feedback on because, as we've mentioned, this is evolving, and that would be the sort of thing that we'd want to hear from you all from.
Great. The That's great. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. So it's Dong Steven SEO. They're asking the time token is used for crafting, refining, and upgrading. Will it be will it be burned from the circulation or will it just be redistributed?
Okay, so this one is 100% it will be burnt. It will be burnt. That's the main reason. Like the way the token works is not like other tokens in some other games. I mean, in some cases yes, but it's going to be burnt. Let me just leave it at that.
Fantastic. Next question there is how does the time token market cap, excuse me, how will the time token market cap be calculated? Would time crystals have any contribution to the value of the time token? Please explain how you plan to keep the value of the token up.
Okay, so this one is actually, we touched on that a bit earlier in the session. So yes, the main reason that we added time crystals, which is to add some stability to the token. And again, I'm going to work on an article that really discloses this information, exactly what is our theory behind it. And the way we're looking into maintaining the value of the token is through essentially just increasing the burning compared to the generation of the token. And the way we were going to do that is by allowing all the players, crafters or non-crafters, to be able to spend the time token in the game. And that's the bottom line. That's how we're going to push the value to the token.
Got it. Okay. In a related question from them, how can common hourglasses ever be obtained? I see the lowest tier of the Time Warden is uncommon.
Okay, I think there is a problem here because if in the wiki we have a common Time Warden, but probably they saw the uncommon in the mystery box. So yeah, the common Time Warden, we have common rarity Time Warden. However, keep in mind that all rarity of utility NFTs can craft from their rarity to lower. So if I have an epic Time Warden, I could craft a common, uncommon, all the way to epic.
Fantastic. Okay. Last one from this particular guild. What would be the exact benefits of owning non-craftable NFTs from early access? Is there any extra utility? And this is again coming from that same guild.
Yes. So we treat cosmetic NFTs all the same, where when we're going to create these exclusive portals, it's going to require certain tags. Let's say you need to wear at least 2 epic pieces, 3 legendary or whatever, or maybe 2 pieces that are tagged with EAL, for example. So it's going to have the same use as all the other cosmetic NFTs, craftable or non-craftable.
Fantastic. All right, moving on to Gazawi. They're asking, will the skip rarity roll on the bonus rolls allow a person to jump from getting a transcendent to unique? How many rolls will be allowed? Can you get more than 3 slots for rolls?
Okay, so that's that's a really something that we thought about, when designing the bonus rolls, is like, how are you going to treat, like a jump in rarity from common to uncommon is maybe it's not that big of a deal, but from transcendent to unique, it's massive. So the way we did it is that the pool of bonuses is related to the actual recipe that you're trying to do. So if I'm crafting a transcendent, then in the bonus roll bonuses pool, there you'll not see the jump in rarity because of the massive advantage that you would get from it, and so on. So depending on the recipe, we would change the eligible bonuses. What's the second part of the question, if you don't mind?
Can you get more than 3 slots for rolls?
Yes. So the way it works is that the slots, the bonus slots, are tied to the utility NFT level, which is actually capped by the rarity. For example, if I'm not mistaken, like a common can go up to level 10, and uncommon can go up to level 15, and so on. And then at certain thresholds, you might unlock more slots. And the way it works is that once you use the bonus, we actually roll all the slots. Some of them might be empty, but we roll them all at once.
Got it. Okay. Now, I want to just take a quick pause right here because we are getting towards the end of the pre-planned questions. So if you do have any questions you want to ask during the live portion, um, please make sure that they're kind of ready ahead of time. And then when we bring you up, feel free to ask your question. And then it'll just be limited to one question per person at this time. So I just putting that note out there as we work through the rest of these pre-written or pre-submitted ones. Uh, Next user, Atiku, is asking, is there only one unique NFT per season? Then is it a weapon, armor, or is it random? If it is armor, then how is it decided which class it's going to be and which piece is it? Will there be collection going on through a few of the seasons?
Okay, so for this one, actually, we're going to have look, there will be one unique per line. Okay, when I say line, I mean like a green sword is one line, and it goes from common to unique. So for the green sword, there will only be one unique. However, during a season, we might have multiple lines. Each line would have just one unique. And then we're going to try to balance it out, depending on the classes. So it's not really just one unique per season, it's one unique per line during the season. So we might have maybe 10 lines, 20 lines during a season, and for each of those lines, we'll have just one unique.
Got it. And I think some of those cosmetics are going to be able to be used across multiple classes, right? Just because you have a skin for example, the green sword, you're going to be able to probably use that across multiple character classes. Is that right, Khalid?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, it depends on the type of weapon and the class and things like that.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you. All right. Next user, Streppy, they're asking, could a player who owns only one space and with no utility NFT get any benefit from it?
Yes. So the main benefit is the cracked hourglasses. Then is like through the airdrops, through the drops in game, you can get a common utility NFT that you could use.
Got it. So even with just a single space, even without the airdrops, you can still get that cracked hourglass where you can collect that in-game token. You can still
Yeah,
do that.
exactly.
Is that right? Got it.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, next user, Zet, they're asking, what are fashion tags? Are they already in the name of the items, i.e. the blank of Sir Brunor, or will these items have a new name or a tag?
Okay, so when we say tags, what we mean by them is like, let's say, for example, EAL cosmetics, or maybe season 1 or season 2 cosmetics. Maybe like we might add related to the art style, let's say medieval or something like that. And then we're going to use these tags using our exclusive portals, where it's like we need you to wear 2 pieces of tag X or tag Y, and that's how you become eligible to enter the portal.
Fantastic. Okay. Next question. Why did you not choose to take a fee on each time token transaction instead of introducing time crystals into the economy?
Okay, so the way time token works is that whatever is spent should be burnt. So essentially, these mechanisms work in a very different way, like time crystals and time token. And again, like the reason why we added it is to add a component that has some stability. You know, the entire economy, like a big part of the economy relies on the token being stable. And we want to make sure that happens, and we want to embed some economic levers into the hourglass system to make sure that we have the flexibility if we want to adjust things with the token.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Next question is from Jap. They're asking, does the process of refining T1 shard require the time token? One of the graphics shows it does, while another does not. So does the process of refining a T1 shard require the time token?
Yes, refining will cost time tokens. If you go to the refinement sheet, there you would see the system exactly how it works and how it goes from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3.
And to confirm what you just said, is that available on the Gitbook right now, Khalid?
That's correct, yeah, on the wiki.
Fantastic. All right. Getting down to, we've got 3 more questions to go, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So InstaRang, they're asking, can we choose what we want to craft, i.e. the sword or the axe, or will it be random?
No, 100% you can choose what you want to craft. It will not be random.
I'm gonna craft a statue of Khalid. That's what I'm gonna do. That's gonna be like the first or second thing I'm gonna do. So I take it from there. Next question from the same user: how many exits will offer the starter area, or I guess how many exits will come off of that starter area?
Okay, so the starter area will not actually have an exit, meaning you cannot connect any utility NFTs to it, but it will have a connection point where you can connect your space to it.
Got it. And I think we have that one laid out in both the graphic and the video with Zach Rice, where they describe how you can connect the space to it, but then you have to add the utilities to the outside of that space as opposed to directly to the starter area.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Last question here. Don Pablo 33. They're asking, why are we reserving some special zones? Doesn't that make the game pay to play?
Yeah, so again, I think we talked on this topic. No, because the loot table will have nothing to do with power advantages. It's only related to time tokens if you have an hourglass, cosmetic shards, and non-craftable cosmetic NFTs. Yeah. So, and another thing to consider is that we're also like after the EAL, once we have the open beta, we're going to have a pool of utility NFTs to be droppable also in game. So that would also be affected with exclusive portals, but nothing related to the power.
Got it. And I think that's similar to what another question that a user asked, which is if they only have a space, can they still collect the token? Yes, through the cracked hourglass. And you can still go through all of this, find some of those items, which then gives you access later on to other parts of that game as well. So you can get it from in-game play, or you can kind of control your destiny quite a bit more through that crafting and owning process yourself. Great. Okay, well, that wraps up all of the questions that we had from the uh, form submitted ahead of time. Now I'd like to open up to the audience. So I'm allowing requests from everybody right now, and I'm going to invite one or two people up to speak at a time, and go on up, ask your question, and then I'm just going to remove you as a speaker after you ask your question, and then we'll bring the next person up. So thank you so much. We're going to start off with Life Eternal right now and Dong Steve. So we'll start this one off with Life Eternal. Go ahead, please ask your question.
Yes, thank you for very much for having me up here. Can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear.
Perfect. So what continues to drive the value of a season's world dropped NFTs? Since as you stated, the NFTs cannot be upgraded, other than the obvious speculation or desire of collectors.
Okay, so for those, also we need to consider the tags. So whatever we do with the non-craftable NFTs, they could have special tags, which could be required by some portals. And the way we're going to do it is that these portals will always shuffle the tags. So everything should come in handy at some point. On top of that, we also have the burning mechanism. So again, like you could burn specific NFTs to get some currency that you're going to be able to spend in the game in some way or another, which we're going to add the details of later on. But yeah, everything should have its value and should have its role at some point.
The other thing I'd like to add on to that is a lot of the cosmetic importance of our economy is built on a high quality gameplay. If this was not a good game or if this was not an enjoyable experience for players, then it's likely they would not truly value the cosmetic or the crafting component of the game. And when you take a step back about why Big Time assembled the team that it did, um, it's pretty clear that we really put a big emphasis on that gameplay and continuing to grow over the course of several years. So that's always going to be the most important part where we think all the value and the cosmetic component that which our approach to it is unique within the gaming realm, but it's all built on that high quality gameplay.
If I may just respond 1 second here. Some feedback from the community that I've heard from other players that I played with is some of the concern that we have on that is some of us like to collect some of the older NFTs. So if you begin to cause a need to burn some of those, quote unquote OG NFTs, it may actually have a negative effect on the overall economy because people may not submit to that burning process. Just offering that feedback.
Yeah. It's 100%. It should be optional and not a need. Like I agree with you completely. It should never be a need. It should be something optional and very selective. We should do it once we feel like this line of NFTs needs that implementation to it. But yeah, I get your point completely.
Life Eternal, I thank you for asking that one. I did move you back down. See your question, and if you have any more follow-ups, please ask them. But we've got about 30 or so people who have requested. So with that being said, Dong Steve, please ask your question
Hi, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
loud and clear.
Okay, so just a clarification on the airdrop based on the points we get. So let's say, for example, in my OpenLoot wallet, I have 3 sections under my collection: in-game items to sell, active listing, and I have most of that under items to sell. That's because I have noticed during Silver Pass, if I have too much NFTs under in-game items, that slows down and sometimes kick me out of the portal entering the dungeon. So if that is the case, for me to get all the points I'm supposed to get, does that mean I have to move everything back to under in-game items, or is that okay as long as I don't put them under active listing?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Before we can disclose anything about that system, we need to really check about what type of tech and data we are able to get, and then we could give a very solid answer. But like I'm just telling you, like our philosophy is that if there is someone who's putting their things up for sale, then that shouldn't contribute towards their points. However, if there is a technical issue and then some people are forced to do something, we're going to look into it. Like we're not going to affect that. Yeah.
It's a really good question, and it's something that we'll investigate. I think the spirit of what we're trying to do is make it so there's not this sort of weird condition where something is listed and we count it, but then it gets sold and then someone else has it and then we have to double count it in a weird way. That's the kind of spirit of what we're trying to do to make sure that it's fair and equal for everyone. But to Colin's point, we just need to make sure that technically we can implement a solution that works for everyone. We, by no means do we want to make it so it's like we're punishing people in any way or making it so they have to put their stuff in a certain spot. It's literally just more to make sure. I guess the better way to put it is we want to make sure we're counting every NFT exactly once and only once, rather than creating these weird edge cases for transactions to create like duplicate counts.
I brought up Jordan the Redeemer. You're on deck, and then Johnny, you'll be after him. So Jordan the Redeemer, please ask your question.
Awesome, thank you. Specific to the early access cosmetics that have been dropping, can you help explain the team's decision on why we are not able to upgrade them? It seems like that would only help the value, the utility. A lot of us have been stacking these to potentially upgrade to higher rarities. So if you could just explain the reasoning for that, that'd be great.
Yes, sure. So the upgrading is derived from having utility NFTs, and then the craftable line, and then we have the non-craftable line. Now I've seen a lot of people who have been raising questions about the non-craftable NFTs being able to be upgraded or not. I'm not sure. Like it really needs to depend on the way we integrate them into the recipes.
I would say that we want to make sure they have value beyond purely just holding them. So if, let's just say you are stacking them, we feel like the non-craftables, because they can still be used in the crafting economy as inputs, still give them a ton of value. There's the way I would view it is we actually thought the opposite, which is creating non-craftables give them a uniqueness, because they aren't upgradable. They are what they are, and then that kind of gives them value. And on top of that, they have crafting value as inputs into recipes versus these craftable NFTs, which they're all effectively inputs into recipes. They aren't like their own standalone item.
I think one of the other things we had discussed with the gold, silver, and jade releases was those items have some very low quantity numbers and will never be dropped from in-game play ever again. And then in some ways, those are the testament to like their uniqueness. They're not going to be dropped from in-game play again. So in those ways, we almost don't want to modify them or upgrade them because they are like artifacts from that time as well. Okay, next question is Johnny, and then after that will be Zalrak.
Thank you very much. So my question is, how does a free-to-play player interact with the game economy? Because what is the impact of the free-to-play player, since it's a MMORPG, having a lot of players is critical?
Okay, so you're asking how does a free-to-play player contribute toward the economy? So the way I see it, if this player does not have an hourglass, then the way they could contribute is through cosmetic shards. Cosmetic shards are actually, they can only be generated through gameplay. So they require a lot of players to play, accumulate them, and that's how they will be able to contribute to the crafting economy.
I think the other part of that too is they're part of the teams that like collect these things. Like Big Time is kind of best enjoyed and played with other people. So if you're part of that like raiding party that goes through the dungeons together, then you're helping collect those items. And whether or not that goes directly towards you or towards like a team effort, I think is a pretty important part of the game. Zalrak, over to you. King Perrin, you're up next.
Thank you, guys. In the economy reveal, you also revealed a lot about the new utility NFT mystery boxes, but nothing is mentioned about the existing Binance mystery boxes that some of us can purchase. Is there any plans for them currently in this setup, and will they count towards the airdrops as well?
This is a good question. I don't think we've necessarily included the Binance, but we take that under consideration. It's just something we can and should add because it kind of sits outside of what we've been counting. We'll have to follow up and see if that is something we can easily do.
Yeah, as a big holder, that will be nice.
Yeah, I get it. Obviously it's a lot easier for us to kind of control what's in our economy and in our purview, but I totally understand.
Thank you.
King Parent, over to you. Next up will be Gazawi.
So one of the things that I noticed in the economic reveal is there seems to be a large void for the ability for free-to-play players to interact meaningfully in the game, which I think would be a detractor for people to play this game as a free-to-play player. How do you guys intend on keeping people that haven't invested money into the game to be interested, understanding that there is a psychological bent for people to not interact in a space where others take value where they don't?
I could just say one thing, Brian. Then maybe you could take it out. Is that the crafting economy is not the entire game. Like big time is really built on multiple things, and crafting is just like one part of it. And there is another part that is the progression, the
That's
leveling up,
exactly
and things
that's
like that.
exactly
Yeah,
the case, and that's the point of the question. Is
yeah.
There's a psychological bent to not interact in a space and spend in this space if your counterpart makes money. Meaning, I, as a free to play player, am much more likely to give $60 to Epic Games to buy their skin than I am to give Bob, who's also playing this game, $60 for the same skin. It's a psychological barrier for the majority of free to play players. And that's what I was asking is since there's very little way for a free to play player to gain out of the ecosystem, it puts them beneath their counterparts in the ecosystem, which causes this psychological issue. So how do you guys
So
plan on getting over that psychological barrier for the free to play player to interact with your game?
So I'm not 100% convinced that there's this psychological barrier to paying like a secondary player versus paying Epic Games, for example, for Fortnite. I think if anything, the way we want to frame the discussion is that look, we are providing the tools to the economy to all of our players, and we are not just like printing millions of Naruto skins to sell to all of our players and then they can buy them for however much they want. We are creating those tools for all of our players to participate in the crafting economy. And I think the free to play players, or let's call it like the non crafting players who might spend some money on cosmetics, will be somewhat encouraged that they're just buying from someone else who put in some amount of time into the game versus Epic Games that just like hits the go button and prints out an infinite number of skins. That's kind of the goal in my mind, or the hope in my mind, is that is going to be the sort of player that we recommend we get. And I'll say this too. I think the vast majority of players don't really care. Like they're going to buy, if they want a skin, they're going to buy it. Who it comes from, they're not going to really make a huge distinction whether it's big time, printing millions of skins versus then buying it from another player.
Got it. I think the next question is coming from Gazawi, and then after that it's Kikupa. I just want to point out we're at the 5-minute point left in the Q&A session. These questions are fantastic. We could do this, I'm sure, for quite a bit longer. And if you have more questions, we are going to be monitoring the NFT economy chat, so feel free to post them in there. But with that being said, Gazawi, over to you.
Hope everyone's doing well. I wanted to ask, after hearing what Khalid said earlier about still getting uncraftable NFTs further down the line, will the rarity of those, like further on, will we get more rarity uncraftable NFTs? Like, will they scale with the craftable ones? So technically, will there be a unique uncraftable NFT, which there's only one of?
Yeah, so about that, actually for the non-craftable ones, we don't need to follow a very rigid scale of rarity from common to unique. So it could be depending on the line. Some lines might have 3 types of rarities only, some might have more. We're gonna have to see just what would be the best balance for the non-craftable ones. So for the craftable, it makes sense to have a sequence because everything is upgradable. But for the non-craftable ones, might not always make sense to have that 10 tiers of rarity. So yeah, it's going to be completely open depending on the line of cosmetics.
Kikupa, over to you. Wamri, you're up next.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Quick question I had was obviously with the econ docs, seems like it's going to be leaning a lot for crafting to go toward guilds and being a part of them. How is it going to work where if you craft a unique item and it takes a whole bunch of guild members and their resources to craft this item, how's the ownership of that item going to work?
Okay, so that one is like the ownership should be on whoever crafted it. Now we need to look at, again, like similar to how the renting is, we need to gather some more info to see what is the need for something to be implemented to handle this case. And then depending on the need, then we might need to implement something. But yeah, that's generally how we're looking at it. Something similar to how the renting, we're handling the renting system.
Hi, do you hear me?
Got you. And then after that, it's going to be the cryptoalist, from Scholar Club.
Okay, if there is non-upgradable NFT, so why is there an upgraded image of the Epic Fixer set on your Twitter and Instagram? And second question is, I invested with friends, and will we be able to have like in-game peer-to-peer trading within a guild or something to prevent the taxes or whatever?
Khaled, if you want to, or Brian, if you guys want to do the first part, I can do the second part.
Yeah, sure. So for the first part, just because the non-craftable NFTs will not be upgradable, it does not mean that they will not have a hierarchy of rarity. Again, like it would depend on the line. So they could have multiple rarity tiers, but not be upgradable.
For the intra guild or like trading between family and friends, that is absolutely something we're looking into. Or I should say, like, how can like guilds or players working cooperatively kind of like share those items or spaces and stuff like that. That's all part of that rental system that we're talking about and looking for that feedback on. And part of it, it always needs to contribute in a way towards people working together and playing together inside of the game. And so, the exact details on that stuff, that's really the next phase of where the economy and the guild system goes next. This part was really more about the fundamentals of the crafting and the upgrading. The next part, which is the working together, the guild aspect, that sharing, that's the next stage of development that the team is going to be working pretty in depth on. And that's where your feedback from the community, we really look forward to hearing from that inside of the NFT economy chat. Cryptoalist, you're going to be the last question here, and then we're going to move into some
Thank you very
closing
much.
remarks.
Hey everyone, this is me, Cryptolist. I have a question about the hourglasses. Like, are you unable to share those with other players, for example, a scholar, and earn a crafting fee on them?
Okay, so actually they are the most NFTs that would be easier to implement and to allocate the percentages of, let's say, the owner to the renter and things like that. So yes, they are also part of the renting, and then we're also looking into that.
Got it. Okay. And that brings us exactly to our 1 hour mark. So I'm going to pause here. I'll pass it over to Michael, Brian, or anybody else that's on stage right now if they have any closing comments. What I can tell you is that from my perspective, this has been a pretty productive chat. greatly appreciate your questions, both submitted beforehand and asked during our discussion here. We continue to monitor the NFT economy chat, and we are going to do one of these discussions again in the future. I don't have an exact date on it yet, but as more information comes out and as people kind of work through and marinate on the information we've put out already, more questions will pop up, and we're going to be happy to do one of these again. So with that being said, I'll open it up to the panel here for any closing remarks.
I would just kind of add on to that, please keep giving us feedback. Please keep asking difficult questions. We are updating the wiki. We're trying to make things more and more clear. So keep at it, guys. Just because you didn't get to ask your question today doesn't mean you won't get your answer. And if something wasn't as clear as you'd like it to be today, more clarity will come.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that just about does it from the panel members. Everybody, thank you so much for that. We'll be in the NFT economy chat monitoring that for a little bit.
Oh,
Until
and
next time.
one last
Oh.
thing. We're gonna pick 5 winners for we are going to select 5 winners who submitted questions. So stay posted for that.
Thanks everyone for attending this session. It was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.